Okay, we'll get going with the workshop, to go over the Spring Ave project. This workshop is called so we can kind of see, Lewis and Lewis talked about having to go into winter shutdown, so this will start with you, Josh, and you can kind of tell us what your plan is and kind of fill us in where you guys are right now and what your guys' plan is.
Okay. I'm assuming everyone received my email. I hope that got passed around. Did everyone get the chance to read that? Pretty much where we sit is kind of what the email I'd sent out. Lewis and Lewis is asking a winter shutdown and kind of just wanting to understand how the town and joint power board is wanting to assess or how they're going to assess liquidated damages. Currently, with the project and how we'd like to approach the situation is to, we will be 100% with the water line all the way through spring. This line will be live and active shortly after this week. For the current state project for surface improvements, I'd like to finish all concrete valley gutter through spring. That'll allow us to control water runoff and just have a good, it's going to help us out throughout the winters. And then once spring comes, you guys have a way to control the water. But so the proposal was to, we'll bring the valley gutter all the way down through spring and do a base subgrade material, which we'll call road base or roto millings. And they both will act in the same nature for the base grade and give you a temporary asphalt surface of around 2 inches. So it is drivable. You have a good road to drive on. It'll wick the water away where it needs to go and able for plowing through the winters. I believe this will be done from 2nd Street through all the way through South River to Elm. I want to provide you guys I want to go full width, but I know a 15-foot driving lane for both sides, give you about a 30-foot top of asphalt. This would surely give you enough space for parking out the sides or a travel lane through Spring and South River. So that's kind of our hopes and plans for currently we're close to seeing that being done. If there's approaches, any other types of drainage, any access that you may need, we're open to a discussion there, but we'll make sure everyone can get into their residence, businesses, and accesses. I see if this was allowed and we're allowed winter shutdown, this is the approach we would take. Currently, as weather's not on our side anymore, hard to do anything on the surface that will stay. We'd like to have the time to let the winter pass and come back and get back on the project and do the work the right way and the work that you guys will like and appreciate. Doing it through the winter, it's a little ugly. So kind of where our scope is right now with that. I'll open to anything if there's any other ideas that you may have. I know from the rest of my email, I know a big key in questions are maintenance. How's that going to be controlled? Who's going to do it? And where's the cost going? Now, we will leave machinery here. Proper equipment that we'll need for any type of incident, if there were one. And with us being far from home, if there's any, say, main incidences with the current water line, obviously we need to take care of it right then and there, so people are back to service. All we're asking is an open communication at that point. Now, to a point where Ken Lewis and Lewis get here, can we perform the work in a timely manner? Will the roads allow us, etc.? If not, who's going to help? And we asked if the town can assist in certain natures. Don't really see much happening on the surface other than snow plowing through the winter. And when the frost goes away and we start seeing stuff come to the surface. So really, with the only thing I can see the town trying to, that we would see is any kind of type of water breaks and snow plowing. And I don't know how we sit with the snow plowing. I mean, we'll provide a road that can be plowed and drivable. And then, you know, now if there is a chance that we can get here, we'll surely help assist or perform the work ourselves. Yeah, we just asked the town if they can help us out through the winter. If there's anything serious that needs to be taken care of right away, you know, we just handled. We had a situation last Wednesday. You know, we left town. Town had to step in and take care of that, but it's kind of how I see it. Now, if we're able to isolate people, you know, and whoever's on that line is okay without water and we can get here in time, we'll surely help and repair. If it's a main ordeal, say the new line, hopefully not, but new line, the town hall's down, you know, it's immediate reaction, and how does that look? I think having a protocol per se on these type of incidences. I feel you know, with the water line, you guys are gonna have to take action right away and kill the water, and then we can have the discussion then. Surface. You guys can continue plowing the roads once we have the temporary surface on there. Keep doing what you guys do through the winters. And but if there's any type of external road damages, asphalt, whatever it may be, we can then have that discussion and figure out how to fix it.
So what happens? This is all if we do a winter shutdown, correct? What happens if we don't approve a winter shutdown?
So if we are if liquidated damages are being assessed still through the winter, I mean, it's hard for us to cure all that while we can't do any work, but we'll surely try. But the product you will receive isn't going to be, it's going to be tough for us to perform a good product for you guys. First thing is getting the rest of the South River tied in. That's a pretty big ordeal. And the what ifs there outweigh anything, I feel. Don't want to have an incident where the town shut down for water and we're frozen. Well, that's the scary part of that. I know we've talked about it, we can isolate, but there's a lot more to that tie-in that we feel outweighs continuing with it. Cause it's gonna be on good weather. I mean, that's a 2-week ordeal. At minimum, I see to do those 3 times right there, especially the big one.
So can we talk about optics a little bit? When you drive around town and you know there's LDs on the line, we have good weather. It's a Saturday or Sunday. We're parked.
Your park meeting,
Nothing's being done
oh,
on the project.
yes. Performing weekend, we have put guys through here through the weekend. Performing work. I mean,
Can
Yes,
you
sir.
expand on what you mean by optics? Like if we say we have weekend work that something's not getting done, can you expand on that saying like,
I'm just talking optics. When someone drives by, it's a good weekend and we know that work should be accomplished and it's not being accomplished because it's a weekend.
I guess where we're at this point and everything, not anything can get done in 2 days. If the weekend was good weather, nothing can get done at this point within 2 days of work, because even if the weather was nice, we've run into frost in the ground. And that tie-in that Josh just spoke about takes more than just 2 days. So even if it looks great for 2 or 3 days, we don't have enough time to get a tie-in done to finish the project as a whole.
I don't believe that.
when we utilize the weekends for now thawing the ground. Takes multiple days to do that, so we can further the process. Instead of us being here during the week, waiting for the ground to thaw, we utilize that weekend to the week to thaw. I mean, at the current time, we were working weekends up until it did start getting cold and we were dealing with frost.
How long do you think you'll need to complete after you come back in the spring? How much time are you looking at there? Roughly.
I think depending on the wind, is obviously the question we want to know. Runoff is obviously an issue, but I think if we can beat that, and we have temperature above 30 degrees at night to where we can get back on the water line, that's the key right there. And there's a chance we could beat that runoff, so we're not dealing with flooding or high groundwater. The rest of the water line, I can see at minimum to 3 to 4 weeks to finish that completely. And the surface, once that frost is gone, we can, I don't really see it being a month. Actually having the pavement down, it could be 3 weeks. Then there's just more of tidying up the job and your signs put in and all that little stuff. But being substantially completed with the surface, it could take us 3 weeks. Yes. So obviously, if we were handling groundwater, we would gear up for that. Not necessarily a big deal because we've become pretty experienced in it lately. So we'll handle it as it comes and do the work. And the timing thing is, do we do it before runoff? Do we do it during runoff? do we wait? I feel like the longer we don't want to wait either. Don't want to come back in July and the runoff's done. Like to see the job done as early as possible for you guys.
It's probably a window there if you can hit it.
I don't know what it's like here in April, most Aprils, but or even March. The utility work can be done while there's frost. It's just, you need to have that temperature at night, just in case there is an incident where we kill people with water and need to run a temporary water. That's our only concern for the utilities. And for surface, once the frost is gone, once it's at least at a foot, we can then get in and work.
I mean, you never know what the weather's gonna do, but yeah, like you said,
Right.
you should have a window, but is it gonna be below 32? I mean, probably not till May. I mean, it snowed here in May a couple of years ago, so I mean, who knows what's gonna happen. It could be nice in March, you never know, but I guess as far as the winter shutdown, I'm getting back to that. What does the attorney say about the LDs? If we had any more communication with her about that?
I think if Lewis and Lewis is asking for a winter shutdown now, if they had all the water line tied all the way in and it was paving, I mean, per spec, it's gotta be 40 degrees and rising. They can't pave.
Yeah.
But their opinion is you don't charge LDs over winter shutdown.
So if we do a winter shutdown, that clock stops effectively, all right?
Mhm.
So then what happens if we have a major issue during that winter shutdown and we run out of our LDs that we already collected? I guess that's my concern. I mean, are we gonna be able to make that? I mean,
Well, I guess my question would be, what do you mean if we have something major happen? So I guess how I look at it is like the deal that happened down by the Catholic Church last Wednesday. Like, that should be billed like subcontractor work, that, in my opinion, and not taken out of the LDs. If we have a water line break while they're gone, it needs to get fixed. Now, whether they come back and do it or they hire a subcontractor or they have the town do it, that's them paying for it to have that work done, and that's not coming out of the LDs, is my opinion of it.
if they're gonna pay for it.
And that's, I think, part of it. I think that's the top, or the conversation tonight is, are we gonna be reasonable and grant them a winter shutdown? And then if something major happens and we have a water line break or something, and whether it's they have our guys go and fix it, or they come back and fix it, or hire someone else to do it, but that's not coming out of the LDs, that is the cost of doing business for them, that they, for not having the project done.
Essentially, we would be paying the town for that portion of the work. We'd be paying you back.
So we'll do a winter shutdown essentially, and then say it's December 15th. Till whenever the weather decides to cooperate and we can get back in there, clock stops. But if anything happens, we'll get in writing that they'll hire somebody or they'll come and do it or pay the town to go fix it.
Which is the protocol is discussing is, let's talk. Let's come up with a game plan. We'll make it in writing. Who's doing what, or if we're doing whatever, and get it signed off. Forward.
So I'd like to get the opinion of Chuck and Dawn. Do you see any impacts, Chuck, to your work or anything that's gonna cause you any grief over the winter with if they shut in?
I don't think so. I think the issue we had down here last week was a 2-inch service that eroded away. And with all the work in the ground shifting and moving, that probably caused it. There again, in the last month, we've just dug up 2 other services that aren't anywhere in the area and they brought it away. So
We haven't had any maintenance issues.
I don't think so.
What about with you, John, snow removal or anything like that?
I don't think so. Once they get a good surface down,
Place to put it. What about if they don't get a good surface down?
We're not gonna touch it.
Huh?
We won't touch it.
And I think that's the whole point of this is coming up with a solution with what they're gonna put down, and if we're gonna come down and put down a 2-inch covering that our guys can plow and not have problems with, then that's all gonna be more memorialized in the change order, I would assume, of what a winter shutdown is gonna look like and exactly who's doing what and who's paying for what. And I would think if we get to the point where we can come to an agreement on whatever that's gonna look like, that you guys would have to understand that the town is gonna definitely hold you to that. If you say you're putting down 2 inches and gonna have a good surface, we would expect 2 inches and a good surface.
Agreeable.
Yeah, with the understanding that it's gonna be a good surface, it'll last you through the winter, and then that's gonna pretty much end up being redone in the spring anyways. And also just kind of, I mean, we definitely have to talk about this, but we're talking emergency situations. As far as if there were a break or some kind of leak off of the service, that obviously the situation has come up that there's been services that weren't even part of the line that we were dealing with that have come up. The town took care of it right away. We do our follow-up. I think this one was definitely a lot more of a unique situation with the holiday, but if a break happens, the town obviously is going to be the first to respond. But if we can make it down there to help and assist, we're going to make it down there. The only thing that's not going to allow us to do that is roads or anything like that. But if we get the call, we're going to make that assumption that we're going to come down to assist the town and also help. If it's a bigger problem, we're going to be there right there with the town. It's not like we're just asking you to do it and we're not going to show up. There's got to be circumstances out there that we won't show up. We're just not going to be there as quick as the town can. I just wanted to reiterate that we're going to be there to assist. If there's a situation that comes up, whether at roadway, waterline, anything like that, we're going to get our guys there as soon as we possibly can. We're going to get the call, but we just need the town to assist for the time being. And then we're going to come up with a permanent fix for this if those situations do come up. We just need the help in the emergency situation in the town. We're not just going to say, okay, town, you got it taken care of. We're not going to come help, right? I just want to reiterate that.
And I can say something on that. Wednesday, when this leak happened, I talked to Josh and Rod both, and they offered their equipment to use. They were like, it's right here, use it, here's the parts. They're down there with our stuff, go get them. And I mean, they were very helpful on the phone and willing. They just wasn't going to be able to get here within time.
There's another partner in this, but what does it do to TO? Is there any impacts or any additional costs for engineering?
Sorry, Josh, that was a question for you.
No, you're good. So, our costs truly are, it's additional inspection days. So as of right now, we're really over on what we had anticipated. When we originally scoped this, you guys approved an additional work order for us already. My thought is we'll just keep monitoring those and keep moving forward. So, I mean, my thought is that's a damage to the town. That's just regardless the way it works. So, does that answer your question, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of that email, you mentioned that you wanted to pay TO directly, but I think their contract is through the town and joint powers board, so I don't think that's an option as far as I'm concerned, but.
Yeah, in talking to Jane and Ray, they were like, no, the town should be the one writing the checks to TL.
Yeah, because the conflict, if they're inspecting your work and you're paying them, that'd be a conflict. It's just an option we kind of just thought of both. Nearly coming in next year, just kind of easing it up, alleviating the damages on your part, but if conflict is conflict as well.
I guess I don't completely agree with you, Creed, on the
if there was additional work that the town was required to do. And that Lewis and Lewis would reimburse the town. To me, it's just a lot cleaner if that just comes out of the liquidated damage. That's my opinion.
But, well, and I think the reason I think that, Roger, is the concern is if we have another big blow up or something, and we've only got, you know, if they shut down by the end of next week, we're gonna have roughly, I think it's 72 to $75,000 in liquidated damages to this point that's been assessed. We have a big screw up and we use those liquidated damages. Now all of a sudden we're falling behind and we can't pay Josh and them. And that's why I would say that if there was an issue during the shutdown, whether it's the town or someone else that they want to subcontract to do the work, that it's them paying them, the liquidated damages that have been accrued still are there, then we haven't taken from that pot to where we can still cover Josh and T.O.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm not really in favor of shutting liquidated damages off. I'm just done. So how much take out of what has. You know, I'm just gonna use round numbers, say we accrue $300,000 worth of liquidated damages. We can only show that it cost us an extra 50,000 in TO and whatever. And that other 150,000 is just off the table. But I don't think liquidated damages should stop at all.
I agree with you, Roger. That's where I've been on this for the last, since the suspension or liquidated damages or shutdown and started being discussed. I think the purpose and intent of having LDs, number one, it defines a cost that everybody agrees to at the onset of the project before anything even got started. Everybody knew what it was going to be per day. And the whole point of having a contract is so that when one side or the other does something that's not living up to their end of the bargain, there's a process for how it's handled, and the way that this gets handled is by assessing LDs. And I concede that it's unlikely that there could be enough justifiable costs the town could ever substantiate to actually assess the full amount that would be accrued over the course of the winter. But until this project's done, and until we know when you guys come back and get it finished up, and the last stick of pipe is in the ground, and the last ton of asphalt's on the street, we don't know what this is going to end up costing anybody. And so I think we follow the contract. We put you guys on notice that we're going to assess out these. I think we do that. And that's how it's going to roll through the winter, if you ask me. That's my opinion on it. And like Roger said, if we get to the end of the project and everything's complete and the total tab of LDs is, again, just using round numbers, 300, but there's only 100 of justifiable, substantiable costs that we feel like we need to be reimbursed for, then it will be reasonable and amicable at that point in time. But between now and then, I think it's too early to take anything off the table.
That's where I'm at.
Well, I would say to this table and audience, who has raised their hand to never screwed up personally or professionally? Think that if you assess LDs for that amount, that I think it's a disservice to
We have
people.
no idea what it's gonna cost in the next 6 months. We have
Right,
no idea.
But do you want people to do business with the town of Saratoga again?
I'll speak to that. I can speak to that. Okay, when you create an environment where you don't follow a contract, contractors don't want to play ball in that arena.
But people won't even,
I mean, that's a real complicated
even-
question, but
I'm in agreement that you go ahead and you assess all winter. And then at the end of the project, if it has cost us X amount of dollars for anything that has went wrong with it, then yes, that's what gets assessed. But if everything comes out at the end, everything's good, they were late on the deadline, well, let's throw a ballpark figure out there and say, okay, here's what it's going to cost. But as far as the full assessment at the end of the project, if the quality of work's good and we're happy with it, then we're happy.
And I think the problem, the way I see it is the contract says. So what happens if we don't hold LDs out starting now? And then they start back up and they decide to come back in May. Right? So that's that entire time. But then the contract does go by 200,000 or 300,000, right? Because of the delay. So maybe they're impacted by the floodwaters or everything else. So what we're trying to do is figure out how to get the job done without any additional expense to the town.
Right.
Stay within the bounds of the contract.
Right.
And not be punitive.
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to do. I don't know that we can answer that. I think maybe a little change order or something like that revises the wordage of the LDs or something like that. I don't think anybody in this room wants to be punitive and just dig around in Lewis's pockets for a while. But I think everybody in the room is concerned that the town could get left holding the bag. So that's kind of the way I would summarize the issue. I don't know how to get our only current vehicle for making sure the town stays whole is to follow the contract. That's the only current alternative we have. So unless people smarter than me can sit down and figure out how to put something down in writing so that, and in that writing it, you guys would have some assurance that we're not trying to be punitive, and we would have assurance that we're going to be made whole. I don't know how we can do that with just a verbal agreement sitting at this table.
well, that's.
Am I off?
Honestly, we need to follow the contract. I mean, it's too bad. It's too bad that they didn't finish on time,
Yeah.
but you know what? They could have run 2 shifts. They could have run 24/7 or on the weekends, whatever, to get it done. Or they could have started a month earlier. You know,
Yeah.
so.
But hindsight's 20/20. I think right now the only other option is possibly a change order that revises the way the data damages clause is written. But I don't know what your thoughts on that, John.
I wouldn't change anything about the language. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, Ron, when you said nobody here wants to be punitive, right? This isn't about being punitive. It's not about punishing somebody for making a mistake, as D-Ron alluded to. It's not about that at all. I am sitting here, and I think we all are, trying to figure out how to ensure that the town does not, and the Joint Powers Board does not incur damages that we are unable to recover when all the dust settles. I think the only way to ensure that, and that's really my only motivation, that's how I'm thinking about this, is from the town's perspective, is to let that tab run. And then at the end of the job, we'll figure out what's not punitive.
Exactly.
What's
I
my,
wasn't asking for punitive.
It seems punitive.
No, well, it's like Ron says, if you cut them off, and they're not there and you have to have them, you can't get them.
We cut them off and we're tying our hands.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of what ifs that we have no idea that are gonna happen. So we tie our hands at this point. I mean, I can see both sides, but again, follow the contracts and you know,
I think if there's, we have an example right now, so. Josh, your additional costs have been having a site rep out here, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, really, our additional cost will be construction admin, inspection,
Yeah.
incidental cost of that, but that's. I can't imagine there would be anything beyond that, so.
Right, so my question then is, how do we stand with the LDs that have been assessed to date versus the additional costs? Did you burn up? You know, you see what I'm saying? If we might have an example here where we can understand how much additional cost we're looking at per day or something like that. And if we've already OTO whatever we've assessed in liquidated damages to date, then the odds are that will continue to burn money at a rate higher than the LDs next year when they go back to work.
yeah, for instance, that last work order, 15 days was like 1,900 and some change per day, right? And liquidated damages are only what, 1,750? So it's actually costing the town money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, which gets us right back to what John.
And picking the dates, right? Who's gonna decide what the dates are? So, okay, we all, we can sit here today and say, well, it's gonna be December 15th, we're gonna turn it off. Well, are we all gonna sit here today and say April 1st, we turn it back on? Is April 15th the right day? It's all arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's, when you start playing arbitrary. If you start enforcing the contract arbitrarily, you lose your ability to enforce it at all.
If you vary from the contract now, that already says, well, you can vary something else too.
So. I
It's
think,
a binding document. I mean, if you're gonna change it, you're gonna have to have both parties agree and have it, get the attorneys involved and everything.
yeah. And there's, guys, there's plenty of case law out there about LDs and, if the town were to behave what was the word?
Punitive.
Punitively, thank you. If the town were to behave punitively, Lewis and Lewis has an ability to address that through litigation, and they would, I'm telling you, will likely be successful because of the fact that LDs are not meant to be punitive. And so, I guess what I'm saying is, you guys don't want litigation. We certainly don't want litigation. We just want to ensure that we're whole at the end of the day. And so if there is any kind of commitment that we can make, I think to you guys at this point in the winter or the early winter, it's that you're just going to have to grin and bear it and accept or trust or whatever, that when the time comes that there's going to be a reasonable conversation about what the real number is. But I think until we get there and figure out what that number should be, it'd be really foolish for anybody to try and arbitrarily turn it on or turn it off between now and then.
I guess sounds like the overwhelming thought is to charge all these till the project's done. And I think if we are gonna move forward in that manner, then I think we have to be able to tell Lewis and Lewis what we are going to be able to show for damages. Obviously, TO's bill is gonna be one of them that we're gonna, the attorney's bill. And then what else are we gonna be showing them as our damages? If we have another deal like down here, then it's 4 guys or 8 guys or however many we had that day. Hours on the backhoe, hours on the loader. I mean, what are we gonna keep track of? And at what point are we going over and above on our guys that keeping track of all that? To show them, because I mean, if we're gonna say, well, end of the day, it was the 150. Okay, well, where did that 150 come from? And I think that's what we're gonna have to be able to prove to them, and it's gonna be acceptable to them that, okay, yeah, that was their damages. I guess that's the hang up I have. I mean, to John's point, I'm sure there's a ton of case law talking about LDs and what they're meant to do and all that. And the town attorney is saying, you guys don't charge them over the winter. And I'm sure that's what an attorney's job is, to review case law. So that's where I'm kind of held up on it is, no, they're not supposed to be punitive. And if Lewis and Lewis is fine with us charging them through the end of the project, but having the understanding that this is what we're going to be able to show for damages. If there's a water line break like the other day, then it's however many guys and hours on the backhoe and hours on equipment, all that. They're good with that. You won't have much argument for me, but I think we have to be able to tell them how we're going to show what those damages are.
I guess my point in bringing this up to Josh when we talked through it about saying, hey, we started getting assessed on October 15th liquidated damages, which we last talked about was really just covering TO's cost and any incidental stuff. That's why I did bring up to Josh, why do we not sign our own contract with TO to say, hey, we're going to cover for the town those costs after October 15th and then the October 31st date, which added more on top of that. Why could we not cover TO's bill for that basis? That was not part of your original contract with them. And then on top of that, we could really put a number to what it's actually costing ourselves without the town having anything to worry about as far as those costs coming in. That's why that was brought up. And that's why I wanted to do that. And on top of that, we're in a bad place, obviously. Financially, as far as the project goes as a whole, as long as we could at least control that a little bit more and have an idea of what that number could be, that was why that got brought up. And along with that, if we already have TO on the project, we're in a place where we can ask them for surveying services for us. We can ask them for testing services for us. Is that not correct?
The TO represents the town, right?
So they're not, as a quality control, they're not able to be that.
I don't want you to have any control on TO. It's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, fine.
In the bill, you have the control on them. You'll call them up and say, hey, we need you, or we don't need you, when in fact, they should be down here.
From a standpoint as far as overseeing the project, I understand that. I was just saying, hey, we need you to come survey this in for us. Why could they not survey what they built the design for instead of us sending a secondary contractor? And that's all. All I'm saying is we wanted to find a way to quantify this number ourselves, and we would have paid the bill. But that was just an option I threw out there. If that's not the case, that's fine. That's just why I wanted to go that route, was to quantify that number and take what was discussed before about what you're really paying for as damages, take that away so we would not be assessed these damages going through this winter period.
But going back to it again, we don't know. I mean, you're trying to put a concrete number on it, but we still don't know because we got 6 more months of winter.
And that's why I really don't know if we're going to say, hey, we're going to get, I mean, if you guys want to charge them through the winter, we'll do what we need to do to button the job up and maintain it through the winter, but not do any additional work to make it suffice since we're already being charged the damages, and then we'll just go from there next year. Because we are trying to incur costs to get it ready for a winter shutdown, just to get it so it's passable. But if we're going to be charged the damages, we might as well just button it up to where it is and just be assessed the damages. Get it to where it's passable, maintain it ourselves, and then just get assessed the damages.
Well, I don't think that anybody here, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody here is saying that we're gonna, if you bun it up now, that's gonna incur a lot more expense on the town's behalf to maintain the street, to maintain the drainage, to maintain everything. If you button it up and get a nice little street, so we don't have, so John can plow it. Town, if there's any water issues, it's not a big deal, then there's gonna obviously be less costs associated. But what Roger was saying, I tend to agree with him. I think all these need to be assessed throughout the whole winter, just because we don't know. And if you guys can come back in first thing and we're not going to be punitive, I don't think anybody wants to be punitive at this point. But we just don't know. There's so many unknowns now.
I agree. But I guess the biggest question is what is the intent of the town? Is the intent of the town to assess these damages? Because we need to base our winter shutdown ourselves based off of that. Because we won't do temp pavement. There's no point in doing temp pavement if we're gonna have to pay for temp pavement, then be assessed liquidated damages, then come back and redo it all again. So we'll get it to the point where we will set somebody up to maintain the job through the winter, and it'll be a dirt road until then.
Which probably won't be bad in the winter, but come spring when the frost starts leaving, and it'll be hell.
We still got to take all the material out anyways.
But we have to be able to drive on it.
Yeah.
Meaning what?
A car driving down the street.
Yeah, well, we're gonna shut the road down no matter what once we go back and do it.
So are you intending on leaving that street shut down for the winter?
No, not at all. That's not what I said at all. I said, we're just gonna button it up to the point where we can leave a couple guys down there with equipment to maintain it, but it's gonna be a dirt road through the winter, and then we'll come back and do our job. If we're going to be assessed, if we're not going to be granted a winter shutdown, we're not gonna do any temp pavement. We're not gonna incur more cost on top of the liquidated damages. We're gonna get the road to where it's passable, people can drive on it. When it snows, we'll have guys and equipment there to maintain it and get the snow off the road, get it put wherever it needs to get put. But we can't know right now going into this that we're going to be assessed liquidated damages as the contract says, and try to do all this temporary work, to a temporary paving, a temporary all of this, if we're going to incur cost of doing temporary paving and then get assessed liquidated damages next year through the winter, not next year, just through the winter.
Dirt road?
They'll be made.
They're gonna maintain it.
Put a plow on it.
I guess it's
Chuck and Jerry.
it's a question you have to answer yourself, whether you think you can just walk off and leave it and maintain it cheaper, what you propose to do to make it temporary. I don't know if you can, I have no idea what it'll cost you to maintain it through the winter. That's a question you'll have to answer yourself.
Yeah, not if we are not allowed this winter shutdown, it would cost us a hell of a lot less than to do the work we were talking about and make it passable with asphalt and just keep two guys there to maintain it with the equipment. It would cost us nearly nothing compared to getting assessed $2,000 a day.
Did you miss the comments we were making that we were not intending for any of this to be punitive? It was only going to be actual damages. We just need to have that there.
I understand that, but from our standpoint and from a cost, we can't just sit here and say there may be a chance for us to only get 100,000, but there's a chance it could be 300, 350 because the town does not know that number. That was also talked about. So we need to cover our own selves. And if you are going to say, okay, we're going to assess through the winter and then we'll talk about it next spring, that puts us in a very, very difficult point to say, okay.
And I guess it's kind of hard for our sitting council now to say, yeah, we're going to. Because all honesty, you're not gonna be here.
None of us.
You guys are.
Personally, I'd like to work with you any way possible, to have that, to create the least amount of damages on the road. So it's passable, all, you know, get us through winter. And yeah, I don't have a problem with the winter shutdown. I don't know what my. I don't either.
Under the circumstances, where are you gonna go with it? I mean, you gonna try to break them?
Yeah.
If they don't do a good job and finish, or work with them and get a better job in the end.
And that's what we want. We kind of discussed it amongst ourselves. I'm sure the joint powers board probably feels with, we want you to come back and do and finish the job right. We want to try to work with you any way we can. And I believe the council that's setting right now wants to work with you the way they can.
And there's no way legally to amend the contract.
Well, I
Make
mean,
it,
that's, I mean, we've got two choices right now. We can do nothing, change nothing with the contract, and we're gonna have a dirt road all winter,
yeah,
and they're gonna come back in and we're gonna assess LDs. And at some point, we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna show them what our actual damages were. Or we'll have to do a change order, which will memorialize the change to the contract, and whatever that outcome is what it is. And I guess that was my point of going down the road of, okay, so if they have winter shutdown starting next Friday, we've got 75 grand or so already in LDs. And if there's a problem like was over by the church, and we get them a rate sheet of what it's gonna cost for our equipment and our guys to fix it, if they can get over and have their guys in here and save them some money on it, fine, whatever. But we have a rate sheet, so any issues that come up over the winter, they're paying to fix. And then whether it's an arbitrary April 1st startup or whatnot, and maybe we just say April 1st is the day they're turning back on. And if the weather's still crappy, well, you've been able to do some work while the weather's bad anyways. You know, that was where I was going with that, but that's the two options. Yes, it would be a change order that would change order, and that would be a change order, would be like an amendment to the contract.
Yeah. Here's another big thought is, what's the joint powers board want to do? It's basically your guys' project, am I correct? The I told you so's, they're out. We're done with that. What do you want to do moving forward?
Get a good project.
Huh?
Get a good project.
Get a good product. Yeah,
but we gotta cover our ass too, because it's all on paper and the
Correct.
contract, so.
yeah. So basically, do we do a change order? What do you guys want to do?
So I see two things that we need to make, we have to make sure, because I mean, even if we go with the option of winter shutdown, we still have to keep track of our expenses regardless. Because say we have 75,000, we can only justify 30, then they're back, you know, we'll be paying back whatever they owe us. So we still have to keep track of our costs.
But Chuck, you do that, right?
For what we did, yes.
So
Kept track of our hours.
keep track of hours, so make sure we document everything across the board if we were gonna do a winter shutdown. Yes, we want a good project.
Yes, and I think they want to give us one.
Yeah.
Listening to them.
So my second point is, okay, well, if we do a winter shutdown, we need to figure out when we're gonna have a start date. If we're gonna start April 1st and all of a sudden it's winter's still here, I mean, are we all gonna come sit back down at the table and say, you know, you guys have to be back here on this date? And if it's the weather's not cooperating, then that's.
Why
that's it.
can't it be contingent upon the forecast?
Yeah, do you guys, well, even, not even forecast, but even just, do you guys track the depth of frost in the ground?
Yeah.
Do you have,
Well, you guys
Do
can
you
do that
do
too, right? You
What's
guys got
that?
equipment. I said, you guys are gonna be here with, you guys have equipment here. You can track it too, right?
It's
Pick it up?
It is. So you do it contingent upon,
But I'm just saying that it's nothing apparent. It's like when the frost is out of the ground, we'll be there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen it where the frost goes out in the top 12 inches. And then the next 2 feet is still frozen solid. So. Yeah, I mean, it seems strange, but in the springtime, as the temperatures warm up, it just pushes that frost deeper and deeper. So you may not have a frost on 12 inches, but the next 24 is hard as a rock.
So we're gonna reconvene next spring and frost appears to be going out and you guys come dig a test pit and check.
Let me ask this, what would be wrong with, having a tentative start date? And then if it doesn't work out, get together. I mean, you don't even have to call a workshop. Your board could come up with the board could come up, make the recommendation back to them that, hey, we're 2 weeks early, or hey, we might be able to start the 15th of April. What would be putting that into the change order if all possible? Something along that line. Is it feasible? John, you're an engineer. You ever run a contract like that?
Where you just,
Greg, you're the same. Have you ever run a contract? Either one of them? Explain it, so Ron's been involved with contracts, so have I.
So what I've done in the past is you have like a milestone before you even start the contract. You have like a milestone, say, hey, we're starting this date.
Right.
And then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, then you could just change order time after that. And if we have a winter shutdown and we say we're gonna start on April 1st or 15th or whatever day we pick. And if it pushes beyond that, then we'll just make a document that we're extending the winter shutdown for another 2 weeks or whatever it's gonna be, if we decide to go down that road.
So if I remember correctly, the contract is with the town council, correct?
yes.
So I know that we reviewed it and said, yeah, this contract looks okay, but I don't think the contract is with the Joint Powers Board. I think the contract was with the town council.
Get amended when we filed for that funding.
So the contract changed. So we signed then? Okay. So we need 2 signatures to amend the contract now.
If you read the amendment, it was that we take all your recommendations, all that, but I think council still has ultimate.
We had to amend that contract when we filed for that ARPA funding.
We did amend the contract to add you guys as a party to it, but I don't believe it was to give authority.
I guess. We can, on our project.
Yeah, but we still want joint powers.
Well, and I think it talks about, we want your guys' input, and that's, I mean, you can tell me when I've been wrong. When has the council ever went against the Joint Powers Board? Okay, we've asked for your guys' input. We told you when this project got going. We're writing the checks and you guys are helping oversee it.
That's not what I'm getting at. Our concern is the water portion of the project,
Mhm.
right? That's what our concern is, the water portion of the project. But to me, I think it's, if you're getting an opinion from your attorney that you shouldn't charge LDs through the winter, which is what I thought I heard, then it doesn't seem appropriate to charge them through the winter. If that's what your legal counsel's telling you. But I think you need to set the date. I mean, whenever it's going to start, whenever it's going to stop and whenever it's going to start. And then it's holding the feet to the fire till the project's done again.
And to be honest, that's my biggest issue with charging is when the attorney's like, yeah, you don't do that. That's being punitive, and okay, can we get Lewis and Lewis to rely on us at the end of the project to go through and show what our actual damages were down to the last penny? That's my concern is, and like I said, if Lewis and Lewis said, hey, you guys show us what your actual damages were, we're good with that. We're gonna do the temporary paving so we have good streets throughout the winter and all that and bear that extra cost. And I would be more apt to go down that road. That's my concern is the attorney saying, yeah, that you don't do this. It's at some point, I mean, they can go through and do the tie-in the winter and it's gonna be cold and we're not gonna get a great product probably. And there could be a lot of headaches with it. Bottom line is once they get the water line in, it ain't gonna be 40 and rising for a long time, and we all know that. And that's, and to me, that's where if we say we're gonna continue to charge them, I can see how Lewis and Lewis might say that's good.
And what I would say, if you guys want a date, you say April 15th contingent upon weather.
Well, I'd just say April 15th, it's already in the way.
Well, whatever. I mean.
Yeah. April,
Wait,
April, yeah, whatever day we decide.
At minimum, March 15th
fine,
for inspection.
but if you want a date, you set it contingent upon,
Because what you don't want to do is end up having them here trying to put a water line in. and-
Well, I don't necessarily think it has to be a date because it could be an event specific. I mean, if they're,
Well, but
if they're gonna
biggest
pile.
for us is they have to show up when they're supposed to, which is not what they did to start. The July 18th date
it did not.
did not happen, and we jumped through a lot of hoops to make that date happen, and it did not happen. So my hesitance going forward on this is if we say, okay, it's April 1st, and they're just like, maybe May 1st will show up.
But whatever date you set the LD start again.
Correct. Unless we decide to pause the contract again for whether, however that's gonna look. So if we set a date, I think we need to set one earlier. So they can schedule their guys accordingly. And then if it's Siberia here still, then
You don't want to
we'll
get
have
under
to,
this deal and that river comes up.
no.
And
They need to
then
be-
then it's.
But if that's a
it's out
sticking
of a
point, then
fight.
set a date contingent upon.
And I think that's reasonable. If it's a March 15th and see what the weather's doing, if it's still Siberia, then push it out a couple of weeks, see what the forecast is. I mean, at that point, I'm out of the conversation. That'll be, you and Chuck talking about that, you know, but I mean, something like that to me seems reasonable, you know, and I think that at least that, hey, it's starting back up. And if it's good weather and they're not here asking for an extension on it, because, you know, it's still Siberia, then they turn back on and that pool of money of damages is growing, you know, if the weather's good and they haven't asked to push that out more. I mean, I think that's reasonable.
Have we already assessed LDs?
Yes.
How did the accounting work on that?
That's, well, yeah, we've given them notice that we have started assessing them, but they have not been deducted from any payouts.
And that's,
So
the
we
third
haven't
payout.
withheld from any progress payments or anything, so
Correct.
we're just tracking the available LD dollars.
Correct.
So my question for Lewis and Lewis, are you concerned that you're gonna be writing a check at the end of every week for several $1,000s? Or are you just worried about the accruals?
At this point, based on the amount of work we've done and the dollar amount you guys are talking about, it's pretty much the retainage payment. So we would, Morris, correct me if I'm wrong, but this goes usually on the final pay app, correct?
So typically we can assess them through pay apps as we process them, or we could just on the final pay app reconcile everything. If
Which
we,
is what we've
if we-
done in the past, right, with the projects we've done with you guys.
yeah, and typically, and if we felt like there was more money in LDs than what we were gonna pay them, then we'd probably suggest assessing them a little sooner. But there's ways to work through this, and we're tracking and can be smart about it, so.
At our point right now, no, we're not concerned with the amount that we've built and the amount of work we've completed. The final payment, which we consider the retainage, would cover those LDs. At this point, from what I've been tracking, it's about the same exact number. I think we're 75,000 right now in retainage or so.
And you're at about 75,000 in LDs currently.
I think I figured it, if they shut down end of next week, it would be 72.5 or 75, right around in there.
So one question I don't think we just talked about is if we've discussed this with SLIP, because we have the ARPA grant. I mean, I don't know if anybody's brought it up to them or not. And if they have any thoughts on that, because some of this money will be coming from that ARPA grant. They would likely want some input on that as well.
On how to run our project. Or on how to do the
They're
project,
giving
or-
us grant money, right? And SLIP usually wants to be notified if LDs are going to be assessed, which they will to some extent, obviously. But, SLIP for the ARPA grant would likely want to know, maybe
I emailed Elizabeth Blackwell and I'm waiting for a response because LDs are considered program income. So if they do consider it program income, then it'll be taken off the top of what they are considering and giving us.
So that's a net zero amount.
I don't know what they're hoping to say about it.
So if we expense, maybe my thinking is wrong. If we have 20,000 in liquidated damages, they're gonna take 20,000 off the grant.
No,
Doesn't make sense.
No,
If their
because-
cost goes up
because-
20 grand,
yeah.
if liquidated damages cover it, they're actually taking,
But
we're in the hole then.
exactly, that's my point.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you hear from Beth, maybe email everybody.
All these wouldn't reduce the cost of the project.
No.
Right.
No, and that's exactly my point. But if they're gonna take it off the grant, then that's basically.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it really
Doubling
works
our
that way.
expense.
If we had a grant that was, we'll match 50% of the project, right? And there was some language like that. And so through a change order or assessment of LDs, there was some reduction in the total cost of the project to the town. Then I could see the funding agency saying, okay, well, we're going to withhold some of our grant too. That's not,
You just sign it back to the.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think
no,
that's how this works.
That's my point was that they've been notified and it sounds like they have.
Yeah.
So make sure that they're aware. So they're not getting a big, oh, what the heck is going on when it's all said and done next spring.
I believe the city guys would like to see it a passable road that they can maintain through the winter. All right.
Yeah.
I think the majority of the people here want to see it that way. And allow us, I guess, a winter shutdown. I don't know. Board in favor of a winter shutdown?
They're gonna have to shut down no matter what.
That's kind of what I feel.
There is no option. They have to shut down.
I agree.
It's just a matter of the process of how it's done.
Right.
I damn sure am not for them trying to wrestle pipes around when it's 0 degrees, because that stuff becomes brittle and
Well, then you're talking frozen dirt back in the hole.
you compromise a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not up to me. It's gotta be a decision that everybody makes.
Well, town's contracts with the town, if we don't, if they're taking input and, you guys are with the town, so, I mean, I just want to get a good project.
Kathy, what's your thought on this? You're gonna be on the new council.
I hold them to the contract.
You hold them to the contract?
Yeah, and collect of their liquidated damages. The substantial completion date originally, they're supposed to be done, they're not done. Not saying that we punish them, I'm saying we hold them to the contract and that protects us because we're assuming risk as the town. If we trust that they're gonna complete the work. I mean, it's construction, it's business, that's, the risk is somewhere, someone has to assume it. I don't like the idea of them not putting a finish on there and it's not safe, and then who's liable if someone, damages their car driving on that road? It can't be graded, you can't clear the snow. I understand all that, but bottom line, we had an agreement and they didn't meet that substantial completion date. So I don't believe the town should assume the risk. So I'm saying we collect LDs, we have to write all this down and document what our agreement is. It's not necessarily change order. We're sticking with the original contract. We allow this contracting team to assume the risk, provided they return. Like, there's no just define the date, come back, start counting again. We don't have to meet again. We agree on this. We communicate this to the town. We figure out what is an acceptable temporary fix for that road that is open and undone for the winter for our people in town. And then there's a potential for them to come back and finish the work. And we don't have to collect the LDs in full. We can forgive that. We have that option. I'm not saying we want to destroy the relationship with this contractor, but I don't think the town should assume this.
Understandable.
Well put, I'd echo that.
Very understandable. But I think if you go that way, then they're gonna button it up and leave it dirt road. Am I correct? That line of thinking?
Yep.
Which is understandable on their part. Why put a bunch more work into it?
I mean, we're going to have to document anything that happens between now and when the work continues in the spring. If something happens, if there's breakage in lines or we have to maintain issues, someone's going to have to incur costs there. So we take that out of the LDs. If we do it ourselves, if they're able to come down and take care of it, we're going to have to document day-to-day money spent.
Isn't that the point of LD? So you don't,
Yes.
all the bean counters don't have to sit there and
But you still have to account for those LDs being used, being spent.
To the extent that you have to be able to have your final assessment be defensible.
Yeah.
Which we're gonna have to do it regardless.
Justifiable.
We're gonna do that regardless.
Exactly. We have to keep record of
If
that.
we're
anyway.
Option A, option B, we're still gonna do it.
No, I fully agree with what you're saying.
I just don't think it's personal. It's business. It's an agreement we made with a contractor and they did not complete their work. So we have to communicate to the town. We have to make concessions at some point, but contract is the one thing that binds us.
So when would you guys be looking at shutting down? Even if probably and buttoning it up, just any time now, since your tie-ins are made?
First thing of next week.
Where's the end of the water line right now? Not that it really
The
matters, I'm just
usable-
curious.
Usable is from South River to the third.
And we're fed off the 4-inch right now, right?
And then South River's
The old 10 inches capped.
capped at that. But it's all being fed off that old 4-inch coming from Elm, right?
That's what we did Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know if you captured it.
Yep.
Okay,
But it kept it.
So there's no new pipe in river.
so is that line dead now?
Highway.
They're up. They're up.
Yeah, from the highway to third.
Okay.
But from the highway to Elm, it's still live.
So it could go at any time.
Absolutely.
Are we tied into the 10-inch in River and Elm?
We can't.
So we can feed from the 10-inch.
Yeah, we're live. We just need to.
I guess my concern is if 4-inch goes down, then we're all hosed because then that's the only line feeding, but we're tied in the 10-inch.
We're tied in on South River.
The 10, going to the north. So we can feed from Bridge Street.
But as far,
The only section you guys need to deal with is really from dead end of the 4.
Elm. You still haven't got all the services over yet off of the 10 inch out here, the old 10 inch.
We just have one,
Still just one, so they're not all done
you
yet.
know.
Yeah.
And that one will be done, tomorrow and
Right.
have that hydrant reset and it'll be,
Can I ask what you would do to button it up? The street? If blade it smooth or?
the surface now is touchable, essentially, it's frozen. Stockpile millings, we put it down through South River, if you've seen that. It's a reliable, material. Drivable.
Is it? So that's what you would do the remainder of this way? Put down crest milling?
Yeah. We'll have a hole and we'll have a hole essentially from second to first. That's already all brought down. It'll be issues there.
Next council meeting's next Tuesday. Can you get a draft winter shutdown to everybody? And this is just my thought. To everybody to see, put in writing that say this is what the winter shutdown is gonna look like. And then everything else, I mean, maybe I'm speaking in a turn, but it sounds like that's the way the council wants to go, and maybe half the people here
For the shutdown,
doing a winter shutdown.
well, I had discussed one option in that last email. But you're wanting to know what it would look like if.
Yeah,
we
like
shut
a
down right
shutdown.
now. Yeah,
The draft is like a change order.
Yes. We can incorporate it into a change order, yes.
I think all it's gonna say is we're agreeing to suspend contract times, right? Because that's the mechanism by which the LDs get assessed. Right? So if it's calendar day contracts. LDs kick in after X number of days or at a certain date, right?
That's what I'm saying, just have them draft, or maybe Josh can draft it, or whoever. Just something we could look at for next council.
I would say there would need to be language in there stating that any and all accrued expenses are covered by the contractor.
Right.
No matter what. If it's 4-inch blows, and it blows again.
Any ones, any of it, yeah, I don't,
Mud pit, any gravel.
So if that's the extent of the change order, it seems to me like the contract already covers all. I mean, you're not
It does.
you're not benefiting anything by doing the change order. And to me, it makes more sense to let Lewis and Lewis handle what happens through the winter and not have to do extra work that they're just going to tear up. Personal opinion.
The only thing I see, I don't just see a problem through the winter if they button it up right now in the spring. That's when I would foresee Mace's problems.
But if we just continue the contract, those hellacious problems are already going to be their problems.
Yeah.
If we make a change, then like Kathy said, then we're taking on risk.
That, I don't know, that's how you write the change order. I mean, if you're gonna put a temporary road in there that they're willing to dig back up, then, I mean, they would have to fix it. It fell apart.
yeah, I mean, I think if we go down that road where we have a change order, essentially an amendment to the contract, now it's a part of the contract. But we address that they turn off this day, they turn back on this day. Anything happens, to anything within the scope of the project, cost is to be covered by Lewis and Lewis. Town is to provide them a rate sheet by X date, that they have to agree to. I mean, all that I think can be addressed in that change order, and to where it's very crystal clear to the Joint Powers Board in the town and to Lewis and Lewis of, okay, this happens, this is what we have to. Lewis and Lewis is getting out their checkbook because we had another deal like down by the Catholic Church. You know, I think all that can be memorialized in the change order because it's an amendment to the contract. And now it's part of the contract, so we know exactly what that is.
Yeah, even if you're romantic, the contract, you still have a contract.
That's, I guess that's the thing is, well, if we do this and allow them to do that, well, we don't have a contract anymore. We do. I mean, I guess that's, you know. We still have a contract now. Are we gonna have $350,000 in liquidated damages? Pull from? No, but if they're paying for any issues from shut down to start up. Then, yeah. And in that time period, what was our damages? Nothing if they cover everything.
See both sides.
But if they do not cover everything and the town incurs the expenses, then you've got nothing.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how much risk. I mean, the winter shutdown, there's a lot of risk on the town. Go full liquidated damages, all the risks on the contractor, so.
But if you procure a debt tool, like we're going out and fixing stuff or whatever, you still got a final payment at the end of that contract that you can haggle or whatever at the end of it. I mean, we're not paying them up front to finish a project that's not finished. So there's still, I mean, they've done good work to this point. I hate to, piss them off and get shitty work at the end.
Yeah, 'cause we have over 500,000 left and balance to finish 600,000.
What's the percent complete job today?
72%, I think. Based on payout 30, which was end of November. Six one way, half dozen another, right? Just one way more risk on the town, and one way more risk on the contract. Like I said, their paving they do a great job. Their water line, when they're doing it, it's great. But we've also warned them since day one, winter is coming, and winter's been here, so.
So the way I'm looking at it right now, 72% complete, we have retention on 72% of the project. At what, a month of LDs now, a month and a half? And then a month and a half. Burned up the retention on 72% of the project. So if it takes them a month and a half to finish the job, there's not enough retention left to cover. You see what I'm saying?
That is correct. There's $75,000 in retainage right now.
Right. And when the 75,000 in LD. So if we start the contract up again in the spring, and there's only 25% left, but it takes them a month and a half to do the 25. Then there's an imbalance there, right? Because you're only going to have a third of the, well, you only have about 25,000 in retention left, but another 75,000 in LDs. See what I'm saying?
So we should be able to make ends meet, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that right now, the LDs, the retention covered the LDs job to date, but there won't be enough retention to cover LDs forward.
But we can withhold from the last payout.
So I think no matter what we do, I don't think in this meeting, I don't think we can tell them you're gonna do this and you're gonna come back up with this date. We can't do any of that with a written change order. My
The other option to address your concern mechanically would be to assess LDs progressively rather than wait until the end. Is you actually do withhold them from pay app 3.
You say that a little louder, John.
Mechanically, to address that imbalance is you could assess the LDs progressively. So rather than wait until the end and hope that you just have enough retainage left to cover the actual costs. Is if you assess them, progressively. So if there was 20 days of the 30-day period covered by pay app 3, where LD should have been assessed, you would assess those out of pay app 3. And then if there's a pay app 4, then whatever is incurred during that pay period for LDs would get assessed out of it. It's not the way that the pay app 3 has been submitted. And so Ron's done some back of the envelope math on that and sees the problem. Right.
And I think that was Ray's point too, is that in pay app 3, pay app 2, that was the question, but LDs was only like $5 or $6 grand.
Right.
So why withhold them in pay app 2? But pay app 3 would be if we were going to withhold from a pay app, that pay app 3 is where we would want to start withholding LDs.
Well, I think the goal is a good final project from all of us. And I think either method is going to work. Either option is going to work. It just seems like a change order is a lot of work for not much gain. Because it's going to have to be a pretty tight change order.
Well, this just can bring more expense to it, because I'm sure the town attorney will have to do it, which brings more expense. Every time we call, they call.
That's what I mean.
Expense to the project.
It's a lot of work for not much gain, not much benefit.
The decision to make tonight is
No decision.
the request that we make tonight to bring to the next town council meeting, because otherwise we're going to sit here in silence and not be clear. Do we proceed with a plan in writing, potentially to maintain contract terms? They write up how they're going to manage things up for the winter, and we approve that at the next council meeting.
To me, I think they bring two things to the council at the next meeting is one, a shutdown where liquidated damages are held and we grant them a shutdown, or two, that, hey, we're buttoning up the project for the year and we'll see you guys next spring and enjoy your dirt roads over the winter and have a Merry Christmas. I mean, that's the two options I see. And then it's a matter of discussing it then on we take an option A or option B.
Final answer is council vote.
Ultimately, it comes down to the council, yes.
I would like to see them prepare. I mean, there's historics out there for frost and the weather, temperature rises, flow in the river. You guys could do a little legwork and figure out how much duration you have left in the contract and figure out where that window is. At least your best guess on when you think a good start date would be and when, what your projected duration is. there, I think that would help us. Look at the decisions in the deal, like, you know, was March 15th the day, or where you can beat the flood? I don't know how much duration you have left in your activities, so. If we could get a better schedule, and maybe you guys put together what you think the best projected dates are, that would help.
Also need to consider whether we're gonna have to deal with the water line issues. They are.
The what?
You're gonna have to consider what's gonna happen with water line issues during the winter, whether they put a temp service or temp surface, or just leave it dirt for the winter.
Yeah,
We're gonna deal with all of those. So.
well, I think everybody would like to know what the rest of the job, what kind of looks like, right? When we're gonna start up again, and when our projected finish date is.
You guys have a projected start date, you know, with your winter shutdown?
I mean, March 15th or April, you know, it's right around.
Right in that area.
For the utility process.
Road project would not be included, but the utility project,
In Shirley.
I could feasibly see them starting on there on March 15th. And you said that's about a 4-week job,
Yeah.
approximately.
Mhm.
For the
Just your
water,
best estimate.
for just the water.
Just the water.
That would put them into the mid-April.
And how much longer on road?
I don't see the road taking more than. Well, on approximately 4 to 6 weeks on the surface. And it could be done at the same time.
If
Provided the cure time can
if
happen,
the
right?
frost is out.
If the frost is out, if it's not pouring rain.
40 degrees.
And we would wanna tie that window close together for both operations. Surely the utility can go a week or two earlier. I mean, we gotta rip the surface up anyways to do the work through South River. We might as well just try to do both at the same time. But like we say, frost, I don't necessarily think it's gonna be too big of an issue. Once we know it's leaving, I mean, we still have to bring the road grade down anyways. And knowingly we'll see decently good days. We need to bring a little bit more in, that's what we do. Get rid of the problems. So they really can both be done at the same time. It's just that 32-degree temperatures. What I like to see to give it the best case.
Sure.
Puts us as essentially late April paving, not uncommon for us.
I would say come with what both outcomes look like. The next council meeting and
Tentative schedules.
tentative schedules, and if you can get that to us sooner than later, so we can get more feedback from everyone, the better. And
Some of the historicals that Ron mentioned.
Mhm.
To substantiate that.
If you get here in March, I don't see river being an issue until May. Hopefully we'll be well done by May, but when's the frost gonna leave? And when it's gonna be 40 degrees and rising.
I like to get the utilities. I want to see that done before the runoff. Is that full?
okay, unless anyone else has anything else. Jerry, Jacob, you guys got anything else? Yeah, well, thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay.